How's it going, everybody? It's your boy Night Owl. We're back at it again. We're gonna watch a video from the infamous Blue Jew himself, Nuxtaku. Let's see what the boy has to say. The absolute mad lad.
We are back with Islam lore. Here on Nuxtaku, we cover all fiction lore. That's what we do. Right now, we're looking into, damn, that makes it sound like Islam is fiction or something. That's crazy. But we're looking into the religion of Islam. All right, all the lore. So now we're going to be doing a deep dive on the Kaaba. That's that big cube thing that they all, I don't know exactly what they do there, but we're going to figure that out today. So this was requested by chat specifically from the apostate prophet. I don't really know who he is aside from seeing him on Twitter every once in a while. But lock in, everybody. We are going to figure this out. All the lore is going to be diabolical. Let me know future lore you want me to cover. All fiction. All right, let's go. All right. Oh, damn. Bro, dude, Muslims must hate this guy. Holy shit, Muslims must hate this dude. Oh, God. Is that supposed to be a picture of Muhammad? Damn.
Hi everyone and welcome, this is the Apostate Prophet. I hope you're having a great week. One of the main things when thinking about Islam is the... No, not this time. No. Come on. I'm talking about...
Dude, they must hate this guy! Oh my God.
the Kaaba. One of the main images that you get when you Google Islam.
Yeah, what is the Kaaba? It's the big cube thing.
It is one of the main images because it is the most important location in Islam, the most important building. It's the center of Islam. It's the most venerated place and building in the world. Every Muslim has to turn towards the Kaaba when they pray. And Muslim pilgrims visit the Kaaba and have to circle it multiple times in a practice called tawaf. It is so important because it is believed to be the first building established for Allah, the one God.
Okay.
Although Allah doesn't need that building. Weird. Today the cube is surrounded by the greatest mosque, the Great Mosque of Mecca,
Alright.
or the Sacred Mosque.
Oh, so it was basically just like the first mosque. Okay, cool.
The Islamic belief on the origins of the Kaaba are very different from what an objective, non-Islamic research finds. According to Islamic belief, the Kaaba was built by Abraham, the forefather.
No, it wasn't. Wait, what? Huh? Wait, so according to Islam, the Kaaba was built by Abraham. Abraham was never in Mecca. Dude, we literally have, a Bible that tells us exactly where he was. He was never there. He was in Canaan, he was in Egypt, he was never in Mecca.
Of Abrahamic religion, and he was told to build it by Allah. That is made very clear in Quran chapter 22, verse 26. Muslims believe that Ishmael, Abraham's first son, was given the blessing of the Kaaba so that his descendants would make an annual pilgrimage and a sacrifice feast at the Kaaba.
This literally goes against the Bible. That's first. Second of all, so let me get this straight. So Islam, all right, I'm sorry if this is going to be the Islamic dilemma, as they call it. I'm sorry about that, but let me get this straight. There is a verse in the Quran that says that everything said in the Torah and the Gospels is true. Then how could they literally contradict it by making up that Abraham went to build this Kaaba for his favorite son, Ishmael, who wasn't his favorite son? What are we doing?
Muslims believe that Ishmael was Abraham's religiously important and chosen son, although...
Bro! So in the Bible it says God favors Isaac, but in the Quran it says Allah favors Ishmael. That sounds like a pretty blatant contradiction. How are you going to possibly explain this?
The Bible, where Abraham's story originated, says that God chose Isaac, not Ishmael. Ishmael is described as a warrior, and not the one who inherits his father's legacy. He is seen among many Jews as wicked but repentant, while Christians simply see him as Abraham's other wicked son.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize. So in Judaism, we view Ishmael as he repented before he died. Actually, in Genesis 25, pretty much, where it says that Abraham died, right? Because it said that Abraham died, his sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave, and it seems like they kind of got along. And also Ishmael, despite being older, put Isaac's name first. And Isaac's name went before Ishmael, even though he was 13 years younger than his brother, to kind of make it seem like Ishmael did redeem himself. However, it's very, very clear from the Bible that Isaac is the chosen, is the son, the son that, holds his legacy. Literally, if you want me to quote the Bible, it says, Abraham, bring your son, your only son, your favorite son, the son you love, Isaac. That's a direct quote from the Bible. Here, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here, look. God tested Abraham and said, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son whom you love, Isaac. Bro, we are not, this isn't like misreading it, okay? We're not misreading anything. It's pretty basic. Saying anything else is heresy.
It is quite weird that Arab Muslims would make such a change in the biblical narrative and belief, and afterwards claim that Jews and Christians falsified the Bible. There are more differences than that, such as that Ishmael's mother Hagar, who is Abraham's handmaiden in the Bible, is suddenly directly Abraham's second wife in
no, he never married her. He never married Hagar in the Bible.
Islam.
She was like a concubine.
These changes appear probably because Arabs assume that they are descendants of Ishmael, while Jews are descendants of Isaac. But more to that at another time. Let's come back to the Kaaba. According to Islamic belief, Abraham built the Kaaba, Ishmael took care of it, and over generations it was revered by prophets and believers as Allah's house.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be controversial here or anything. I'm just trying to figure this out. Islam existed in the year... Islam showed up in the year 600, right? You know, like AD, right? AD, the year 600. Abraham was like at least 2,000 years before this. Abraham was like 2,000 years before Islam showed up, and they still had this magic box that lived there for 2,000 years with no religious movement that ever viewed it as holy? I'm just trying to figure this out, man.
That's why Muslims call it Baytullah, which means house of Allah. In the Quran it is also mentioned as sacred house, revered house, and so on. The black stone at one corner of the Kaaba is
I have to do one on this black stone, because there's like a whole lore to this too.
Also believed to have been placed there by Abraham. But at the time of Muhammad, the Kaaba was held holy by Arab pagans, not by Christians and Jews. Muslims and some scholars close to Islam also claim that Christians and Jews regularly paid respect to the Kaaba, but there is...
No, they didn't. No, they didn't, bro. I'm sorry, man. The Talmud, which is a 3,000 page long gigantic book of debates between rabbis, never brought this up. This was never mentioned. It would have been mentioned. They literally mentioned everything.
Yeah, honestly, I would see bowing down to the cube being akin to like worshiping the golden bull or any other false idol or deity.
You have to understand the level of detail they debate in there, and they never bring this up.
There is no such evidence. As for how the Kaaba became a pagan site, Muslims explain that people became over time inclined towards polytheism and idolatry, which would explain why there were idols in the Kaaba during Muhammad's time. But the Kaaba, according to Islamic sources, was nevertheless dedicated to one god, and was also a very important site, because Mecca was a trade center that was visited by people of all kinds of beliefs. Again, according to Islamic tradition and belief, Muhammad...
Bro, this is wild to me. Like, I don't even know why they would, like, make this up. I don't even know why they would make this up, man. Like, it just feels like it's so, like, easily debunkable. Bro, they didn't, like, there's this Borg cube that just lived there for 2,000 years after Abraham came up with his actual favorite son, and, like, what are we doing, man? Like, how do you even... Like, I'm not trying to be rude here, I'm just trying to figure out how this makes sense at all.
Muhammad started preaching at the Kaaba once he declared his prophethood, and after he was driven out of Mecca and fled to Medina, he came back again to conquer Mecca, and then he entered the Kaaba, destroyed all idols belonging to the pagans, let it clean out, and dedicated it again only to Allah.
So Abraham built it, it was owned by pagans for the next 2,000 years, and then Muhammad showed up and was like, yo, this is the place. Interesting.
The destruction of other people's holy artifacts by Muhammad is ironically not seen as an aggression by Muslims. It is seen as a just cause because Muhammad claimed the Kaaba for Allah.
Of course. Like, why wouldn't it be?
Conquering for Allah. Wow. Colonialism or something.
Own God. Imagine founding a new religion, going to Mecca, destroying the Kaaba, building your own temple there instead, and saying, well, that's what my God told me. Imagine the Islamic outcry if that happened.
I mean, to be fair, that's exactly what they'd, like, do, right?
Anyway, that's
It was promised to him 3,000 years ago. That's a good one.
Summary of the Islamic view on the origins of the Kaaba. Now let's come to the non-Islamic, more realistic view. First off, as mentioned at the beginning, Muslims pray
All right,
towards
so that's the Islamic analysis of the Kaaba. It was a holy house built by Abraham for his actual favorite son Ishmael. The Bible was wrong according to Islam, and corrupted or whatever. Even though Abraham was never in Mecca, but he was there and he built this holy house. And then the Jews and the Christians, they forgot all about it. They forgot all about it, despite worshiping the Word of God, which is in the Torah and the Gospels, according to Islam, again. And so then they forgot all about it. And 2,000 years later, Muhammad showed up, murdered the people who were using this as a pagan religious house, and claimed it for Allah. Just trying to figure this out. But okay.
the Kaaba because the Quran says so, and because Muhammad did so. But that wasn't always true. When Muhammad began his prophecy, he wouldn't pray towards the Kaaba, but
this is in Jerusalem.
towards Jerusalem.
There we go, baby. So for the record, for those of you want to hear some interesting lore, I'm probably going to do a lore dive on the Al-Aqsa Mosque at some point. A lot of people don't know this. All right? A lot of people don't know this. However, this mosque is built on top of the ruins of the temple built by King Solomon. This is built on the ruins of the temple. So it's pretty interesting that the Jews are the colonial occupiers of the area, and yet for some interesting reason, this mosque is built on top of the temple that was built by the Jews. Interesting.
Coincidentally, Jews pray towards Jerusalem too.
True.
They call it Mizrah instead of Qibla.
No, Mizrah means east. That doesn't...
Mizrah stands for east, and stands for the direction of Jerusalem from the Jewish diaspora's perspective.
Yeah, true.
Jews also used to pray towards Jerusalem when Muhammad was alive, and there were lots of them in and around Mecca. From an objective point of view, it looks very much like Muhammad started the prayer direction thing because Jews did the same thing, and he claimed that his religion came from the same origins. Now, very funnily, the direction of the prayer suddenly changed at some time, and turned from Jerusalem towards Kaaba. According to early Islamic historian Tabari, who wrote a biography of Muhammad, Jews would mock Muhammad for using the same direction to pray, because Muhammad was hostile to them when they rejected his message, which sounded ridiculous to most of them. The theory that the direction changed because Jews mocked him becomes even clearer.
That's diabolical. That's insane. I'm like actually shocked that this is like true. That this is what the belief system is. Like this, he has to be capping, right? Like there's no way this is real. The true house of God is in this place, and then the Jew made fun of him, and then they decided to put the house of God somewhere else. Bro, this guy, he has to be kidding.
Seems about Muslim. Like, honestly, seems about Muslim.
Like, bro, there's no way.
If you read the Quran. In chapter 2 of the Quran literally responds to people mocking Muhammad for his practice, then announces the change,
Bro!
and justifies it because it says that the first direction towards Jerusalem was only a test for the believers.
That's wild! That's wild. God is like, pray in this direction. And then they made fun of him and was like, haha, tricked you. You were supposed to pray in the other direction instead. There's no way.
Towards Jerusalem for years before it changed. What test was that? What was the purpose? I'm really curious. How does that test your belief? Only the history of the Muslim Qibla, the direction of the prayer, makes Islam look extremely ridiculous in its own sources. But let's come to the history of the Kaaba. As a side note, it is important to point out that pre-Islamic Arabia was extremely underdeveloped and primitive. Literature had no big importance, and written texts basically didn't exist. That's why it's really hard to find out anything about pre-Islamic history, and many people are forced to read the biased Islamic view. Islamic sources claim that Abraham built the Kaaba for Allah and designated it as a place for current Islamic practices, like circling it, fasting, sacrificing animals, and so on. It is declared to be the most important thing about Abraham, one of the most important things to Allah. The problem is that the Bible never mentioned the Kaaba.
Well, yeah, obviously. The problem is it's blasphemy. the problem is it's heresy. But aside from that...
Now, Islam claims that Allah is the same God of the Bible. But if all of this is really the way Islam tells us, then why was the Kaaba never mentioned in the Bible? Why was it never mentioned in Jewish traditions, in the Talmud? Why was it not held important among Christians at all? The Quran even claims that Allah gave Abraham the mission to instate practices like circling the Kaaba or sacrificing. But Christians and Jews don't do such a thing. If that place was so important to Allah, who Muslims claim is the same God of the Bible, it would have been frequently visited by Christians and
Bro, this literally sounds like the South Park episode on Mormonism, except it's in the desert. Bro, I'm literally shocked that this is what they say. I thought that it was just like, Mohammed's temple. Mohammed was a prophet or whatever, and he made a temple, and they worshiped there, and it became a holy site because that's where Mohammed got inspiration or whatever. But that's literally not at all it. It's like, no, actually, Abraham built it here. Actually, Abraham picked his other son. The one, even though the Bible disagrees. I'm literally shocked.
Jews everywhere. But there is no mention of the Kaaba at all in the history of Christianity and Judaism before Islam. Only Islamic sources claim that Christians and Jews also respect.
So Islamic sources that started showing up in the 600s, all right, in the 600s, they started talking about how Jews worshipped there for the last 2,000 years, but no Jew ever mentioned it. Like, bro, what are we doing?
The Kaaba religiously, but there is no evidence to that. That's why many historians don't buy that story. Sure, Muslims claim that Jews and Christians falsified their scriptures, the Bible.
There's no way, dude. No, actually, the Bible's...
No, it's like the other way around. I feel like Islam is just a fake religion predicated on hatred, cruelty, and hedonism. And it was made like specifically to destabilize and combat Judaism and Christianity. But that's just my take.
Wrong. The Bible was falsified. What do you mean? Falsified their scriptures? Like, if you actually read the Bible at all, it's like it's the story of Abraham and his son Isaac and his son Jacob and his 12 sons, and they sold Joseph into Egypt, and then they went to Egypt. There were slaves in Egypt. Moses left Egypt. Joshua entered the land, and there were the judges, and there were the kings. This is all following the line of Isaac. Saying that they falsified their scriptures mean the entire Bible from beginning to end is fake, because actually it followed Ishmael, the other son of Abraham. So this isn't just saying a couple of words were fake. This is saying literally everything after chapter 20 in Genesis is fake. That's not just falsified scriptures. That's
Imagine all this shit is just like a long-term squabble of like two brothers that just resounded through the ages and snowballed like some goofy Fallout side quest, like just the descendants and followers of like both the brothers just founded opposing religions and just like killed each other for thousands of years over their brotherly issues. I hate life.
a whole other religion, man.
But both Jews
just kidding.
and
I love this
Christians,
shit.
especially their religious authority, want to be believers and uphold their religion. What is the purpose of removing references to the Kaaba from the Bible, from other texts, from their oral traditions, or even from their memories? Why would they do that? If the Kaaba is only not mentioned among Christians and Jews because the Bible was falsified, how the hell did Christians and Jews even manage that when there are so many heretical sects among...
Bro, also, let's not forget, and this is I think like the most obvious one. And also, let's not forget that Allah says the Bible is true, and they're like, yeah, it's true, obviously. They just falsified every single part of it. Yeah, sure. So that's one part. That's one thing. Two, you do realize they found, not trying to be controversial or anything, they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. All right, this is a verified by archaeologists 3,000-year-old scroll that literally has the words of the Bible on the scroll. They found an actual 3,000-year-old scroll of the Bible. Okay, it never mentioned Kaaba. All right, it never talked about Ishmael's great-grandchildren. I'm just saying.
Both religions. It was difficult to unify Christianity and
There's also a lot of religious editing going on too. Like, I wonder all the crazy stuff that's hidden in the archives of the Vatican and like all these other religious orders like headquarters. Like, could you imagine like just how quickly humanity would burn down if we knew all the things these people hid from us?
So falsified. Also falsified, true. The archaeologists, they just rewrote it real quick.
about very basic things like dress codes and Jesus. But it was so easy to get rid of venerating Kaaba altogether, all Christians, all Jews. No serious and normal person, no healthy person could possibly believe that.
True. Yikes, bro.
Also, the locations and journeys of Abraham are in the Bible. Current illustrations of his journeys and locations.
I'm so happy he's bringing this up. I'm so happy he is. Because I literally mentioned that at the beginning. Like, we literally know what he did his whole life.
Show approximately where he was and what he did. He was far in the north. Mecca is not even remotely close to his journeys, and traveling there would have taken so long and would have been so pointless. According to most credible sources, early in history, the surroundings of Mecca were mostly an empty, unfriendly, and uninteresting desert. Some Muslims attempt to prove that the Kaaba was actually mentioned in the Bible by pointing at one part of the Bible where it talks of Abraham building an altar. But according to the Bible, Abraham built several altars for God in multiple places, not only one. The same apologists who make such claims totally ignore that fact. Also, if Mecca and the Kaaba were so important to Abraham's God, wouldn't the Christian Romans have come down to Mecca and taken it?
Yeah,
that
you'd
brings
think
us
so,
to
right?
our next point. The Romans didn't even touch anything close to Mecca, especially after becoming Christians.
Dude, they didn't even want that place. They didn't even want that place, bro. They were like, no. Look, we'll conquer like as much of the world as we can, but we really don't like have any interest in that area specifically.
The closest point that was ever taken by the Great Roman Empire was a place called Hegra, which is today called Medain Saleh. It is closer to Jerusalem than it is to Mecca. And the Roman Empire didn't leave anything untouched that was remotely important. And the desert dwellers had certainly not the strength to stop them. Also, Mecca was never even mentioned by non-Islamic and non-Arab sources until
This man called them fucking desert dwellers, bro. Oh god, you should have just called them Tuscan Raiders. Fucking sand people.
the 8th century, when Byzantines mentioned it due to their relations with the growing Muslims. This refutes one Islamic point, that the Kaaba, Mecca, was a very important and big trade center. That is only an Islamic claim. It was visited by Persians and surrounding Arabs, sure, but it was not a big trade center. There is no evidence to that, and every evidence points against that claim. That's why many historians actually come to the conclusion that the claim that Mecca was a trade center was only made up by Muslims or exaggerated because it was only important to Arabs. If it was really such a big and important place of trade and culture and whatever.
I'm becoming more Islamophobic as this video keeps going, bro. This is my own leering center, man. What are we doing? I'm here to
North
leer,
African
bro.
rulers, Romans, the Eastern Roman Empire, Persian empires, and others wouldn't have ignored it, for sure. They would all have attempted to take it,
Right, you'd
but
think.
evidently no one, no matter from what belief, cared about Mecca until Muhammad was successful with his prophethood. All evidence that we have points toward the theory that the Kaaba was only built a few centuries before Muhammad, by Arab pagans, not by Abraham, not by Christians, not by Jews. By the weak Arab pagans that weren't remotely as big and strong as early Christians, Jews, and other religious groups. As mentioned, according to Islamic sources, the Kaaba was full of pagan idols, hundreds of them, and had other idols surrounding them. Because, you know, the Christians and Jews were totally not bothered that some pagans are messing with their holy site. They just thought,
It sounds so impossible. It sounds so impossible. It's shocking. I'm literally in shock. Like this entire time, like my jaw is open that this is like such a fundamental part of Islamic belief.
meh, I'm just here to buy some things for my children. The main idol of the Kaaba was Hubal, who was the supreme god of the tribe that held the Kaaba, the Quraysh tribe, to which Muhammad belonged too. But aside from that, the Kaaba had hundreds of other idols that were instead revered by other pagan tribes around Mecca. The Quraysh were a tribe of merchants, which is why other Arab tribes used to visit them very often and made statements at the Kaaba by placing their own idols there and worshipping together. So it was clearly an important pagan site that only pagans used religiously. When Muhammad declared his prophethood and his new god, Allah, the closest holy site to him was the Kaaba. In the end, it seems very much like Muhammad was interested in monotheism and in Abrahamic traditions. He didn't.
Bro, this dude's saying that he was like, yo, we need to start a religion that's monotheistic, except we need to make it kind of like how our religion, our pagan religion, was holy all along. Yikes.
initially bother very much about the Kaaba in a religious sense. But he had more and more disagreements and hostilities with Christians and Jews who rejected his message clearly. And since his own tribe, the Quraysh, and other pagans rejected his message very clearly and strictly, it looks like his interest in the Kaaba was something that had more to do with his pagan origins and with his feud with the pagans. It looks like he gradually wanted to get rid of Christian and Jewish influence in his religion, but he also wanted to get rid of the
So if I'm not mistaken, originally Muhammad claimed to be a prophet and went to the Jews and to the Christians to try to get them to accept him as their new prophet, and they kind of turned him down. And then he was like, yeah, actually, fuck the Christians and the Jews. That was the impression I got.
Pagan pressure, because the pagans in Mecca didn't like him and wanted to prevent him from growing. So he designated the Kaaba as the center of his belief, as the direction of his prayer, just the way pagans used to. And he used this
Bro, dude, it's kind of wild. So, like, in Jewish lore, there's a debate among rabbis, because everything's a debate among rabbis. All right, pay attention. All right, everything in Jewish lore is a debate among rabbis. There's a debate among rabbis if Islam worships the same God as we do, or if Islam worships a pagan god. Literally, it's a debate among rabbis from like the year 1000, right? As an example. So, anyway, I'm starting to understand both perspectives, if you know what I'm saying.
Because conquered Mecca, captured the Kaaba for his own religion, but reinstated pagan practices like circling the Kaaba and venerating a black stone that was venerated before only by
this definitely sounds pretty paganish.
Pagans. It looks very much like all of this is just a pagan thing. Nothing related to the Bible. Nothing to the God of the Bible, the prophets of the Bible, and nothing related to monotheism and Abrahamic religion. As said, there is simply not enough evidence about pre-Islamic Arabia, but all evidence that we have clearly points to this, that the Kaaba was only fancied by Muhammad due to paganism. There is just no evidence at all for Muhammad's and Islam's theories. That's why, from an objective, honest, and researching point of view, we can only come to the conclusion that the Kaaba is an Islamic issue, a pagan issue.
Damn.
That's why we can barely say that Islam is an Abrahamic religion, but we can firmly say that Islam was a very Arab and a very pagan religion. That's probably why Abrahamic holy sites are here, while the Islamic holy site is here.
Yikes.
Where Arabs and pagans lived. Or Muhammad just lost his compass. Thanks for watching. If you
Damn, bro, that's crazy. Yikes. Dude, I'm becoming more and more Islamophobic as we speak. This is wild. This is wild, dude. I'm glad we're doing the lore dives. What can I say? Here on Nuxtaku, we do lore every single day. Definitely subscribe for more lore. The lore is of everything. The lore is of all the things. We do all sorts of lore. We got to do video game lore or something next time because I'm actually shocked by this one. Definitely subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Never get tired of this man. Never. You learn something new every day. Alright, guys. Catch you on the next one.